All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sine Die voting session. Again, in an attempt to be cordial with our across the chamber hall colleagues, we're going to do a pre-vote. This is SB 1174. It is the Senate version of the Baltimore Regional Water Governance Model Work Group that might come out of House rules later today. We first need to amend it to be identical to the House bill. So I would move the amendments to make SB 1174 identical to Delegate Stein's version of this bill that we already passed. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, amendments pass. I'd move the bill as amended. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the it does. Yep, it's the same as what we passed. So all in favor of SB 1174, signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Morgan, and Delegate Baker. Okay. The next bill is one that's been in our possession. This is SB 943, the Senate version of the Better Bus Service Act of 2024. We are going to amend it, and I will let Chair Love describe that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SB 943 is the cross-file of HB 107. It establishes a statewide authorization for local jurisdictions to use bus lane monitoring systems to enforce the prohibition against driving a motor vehicle in a dedicated bus lane. The subcommittee, or actually the committee amendments, strike provisions governing bicycle lanes, curb ramps, bus stops, and picking up or discharging passengers, basically bringing it back to the House version. Move the amendments, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion on the amendments? Delegate Morgan.
Is this enabling?
Yes.
Thank you.
Delegate Jacobs.
It doesn't say this. Is it a cross file or is it similar?
So
Because I don't see where it's a cross file.
it's not marked as a cross file because one was pre-filed and one was not. And so the Senate bill was not pre-filed. It included things that the House bill then tried to put on later. So it's not exactly a cross file, but it is now.
And what was that House bill number?
107. What's that? Mm-hmm. It's Delegate Lewis's bill.
I thought so. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed to the amendments? Okay. Delegate, you have a question?
The amendments actually included the concerns of the disabilities community, particularly the Federation of the Blind, that they would have difficult at bus stops and curb stops. And but we're striking those, correct?
We're bringing it back to the House version. Yeah.
We're bringing it back to the House version, but we're including the curbside management work group to try to address some of those concerns.
To address those concerns.
But it does
So
not
we will move.
fully address their concerns. They would like automated enforcement on all bus stops, whether or not it's in a dedicated lane right now. And the bill will not do that
Okay, but it is going to move the needle at least a bit on the disability concerns.
with the work group. that
All
they
right,
wanted.
thank you.
On the bill as amended, any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wants to be recorded in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Siliberte, Delegate Morgan, and Delegate Baker. Okay, thank you. We have a number of concur, pre-concur, depending on how you want to slice it. The first one is HB 468. This is from our colleague Delegate Love. It is the Commission to Advance Lithium-Ion Battery Safety in Maryland. We're secondary on the bill to ECM. The Senate's amendments to the version just make it identical to the Senate bill that has already passed both chambers. So it just conforms to the Senate bill that I believe is already on the way to the governor's desk. I would move to concur with the Senate amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed to the concurrence? Okay, it passes. Next up is, I'm sorry, did I miss something?
No.
We good? Okay, next up is House Bill 139, similar situation. This is a pre-concurrence to make the bill identical to a bill that I believe is already on the way to the governor's desk. So conforms the House bill to the Senate cross-file as we previously amended it. Sponsors are fine with the amendments, and specifically they add gas and electric utility bills to the requirement under existing law that a landlord provide a tenant with a copy of the water or sewer bill if the tenant is required to make payments for those utilities to the landlords. For landlords of a building that has 6 or more units, a landlord may notify the tenant of the total utility costs billed to the landlord in the immediately preceding year instead of providing a copy of the bill to the tenant. And this legislation does not apply to specified landlords that allocate utilities using a ratio utility billing system. And again, we've already voted on this exact language in the Senate bill. I would move to concur with the Senate amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? This is concurring with the Senate amendments. Yes, sir. Next up is House Bill 1227. Again, we are pre-concurring based on the actions of the Senate. This is condominiums, mandatory insurance coverage attached units from Delegate Holmes and Arentz. Amendment 1 makes technical corrections. Amendment 2 permits a council of unit owners to carry homeowners insurance on the entirety of all detached units located within a condominium composed entirely of similar detached units. And again, this is to address an issue from a bill we passed last year that we think has sort of been misinterpreted that we want to clarify. I'd move to concur with this, pre-concur with the Senate amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. House Bill 1227, another pre-concurrence. This is the House version of the Housing and Community Development Study on the Establishment of a Homeless Shelter Licensing Program from Delegate Grossman. This just conforms it to the Senate bill, which is already on its way to the governor. I would move to concur, pre-concur. Any discussion?
You said 12.
577, sorry. Sorry, I think I'm gonna feel in 6 hours. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes. Next up, pre-concurrence, House Bill 1097. Guyton, I got it right this time. State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, vet techs, and vet assistants. Amendment 1 makes technical changes. Amendment 2 strikes language that would have required the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners to develop by regulation an alternative pathway for veterinary assistants to become veterinary techs. This language was rendered obsolete somehow by the Environment Committee amendments, which authorize veterinary assistants to perform certain tasks under the supervision of a veterinarian or veterinary tech. So in effect, this is a technical correction. I understand the sponsor supports the Senate amendment, so I'd move to concur with the Senate amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, let's pass, or excuse me, concurrence proceeds. Okay, another pre-concurrence, HB 1055. This is Environment Highways Salt Application. This was Delegate Cheese bill. We are secondary. The amendment conforms the bill to SB 532. Nope, this is an incorrect explanation because it refers to a different bill. This changes.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. This changes. While here, I'll return that before I forget.
Okay.
This strikes language that would establish record keeping and reporting requirements relating to highway salt application and instead requires that State Highway, in consultation with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, establish best practices. So this waters down the bill a bit, but the chair or the sponsor asked us to concur. So I move to concur with the Senate amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Okay. Next up is House Bill 613. This is natural resources, recreational catching of oysters or clams requirements, something about bivalves. This bill is from the vice chair. The amendments require complimentary recreational oyster licenses for a former prisoner of war, unemployable veteran, 100% service-connected disabled veteran, blind individual, discounted license for Purple Heart recipient, and authorizes catching oysters recreationally without a license for certain riparian residents. So to be clear, this bill lowers fees. I would move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that is all we have in our stack now, but listen up on the floor in case we have to meet again in here or if we have to meet off the floor. We do have a very important guest lecturer for our moment in ENT history, Delegate Terrasa.
I think it's going to be Delegate Layman.
Delegate Layman.
Mr. Chair, I have a moment in history to share, if you would so indulge some of the members here. After this delegate graduated from high school, he offered this advice to students at his alma mater: master punctuation, grammar, and spelling. Don't graduate without knowing the difference between your, Y-O-U-R, and your, YOU''RE. This Donahoe High School graduate left the small town of Anniston, Alabama for college at the University of Pennsylvania, then law school at NYU. He has lived a remarkable life since then as a White House intern, a summer law associate in Washington, and now an attorney, husband, and father of 2. But for the delegate we know with a lightning quick wit and a ready laugh, his marriage proposal ended up being a comical scene in front of the Lincoln Memorial. He met his future wife, Alex, when they were both summer law associates at the same Washington, D.C. firm. 18 months later, he took her to the Lincoln Memorial for a surprise marriage proposal under the pretense of meeting friends. He hired a photographer to capture the special occasion, and when they reached the top of the memorial steps, he got ready to drop to one knee. But before he could say the words, Alex noticed the photographer, and thinking he was a tourist, she apologized for blocking his shot. By the time our colleague was able to pop the question, a crowd of real tourists had gathered, taking pictures and cheering wildly when Alex actually accepted his proposal. Let's put our hands together for one of the funniest guys in the Maryland General Assembly, Vaughn Stewart.
Delegate Rossio, sign add.
Nope, she said it all.
Okay. So let me just take another opportunity to thank all of our staff for the great work, the council, but also Trish and Rose and Rebecca and Peyton and the whole team. Our Trooper Mitchell, keeping us safe. And let me just also personally thank all of you. A few of you have heard me say this, but I appreciate you going easy on your baby chair. Let's finish strong here, and I'll see you all on the floor in a little bit.
All right. I would like to thank you and the vice chair for leading this committee through a really, really busy, really busy and important session for us. Thank you very much.
Where was all that? That was good.